Okay. Hey, everybody, welcome to Beyond the Paranormal Podcast. Well, I messed that up, and we're live. That's pretty good. That's what I figured would happen. Anyway, uh, let me start this all over. I knew I messed something up. I knew I was forgetting something. But hey, it's not a good podcast or anything if I don't mess something up. Everybody knows that deal. So, anyway, everybody, welcome to Beyond the Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father, and I want to thank each and every single person that's out there listening and watching this podcast. And tonight on Beyond the Paranormal Podcast, I welcome Miranda Young, who is the co-owner of the historic Scott County Jail, and she has a series called Ghost Biker Explorations, and we'll be talking to her about all this. So glad to have you on the podcast, Miranda. And how you doing?
I'm doing great, John. Thank you so much for having me on.
Not a problem. And we already got people in the chat room saying Chris Summers says hi, hello. Janet Aim, I think I hope I pronounced that right. And trust me, I will screw everybody's name up eventually through all of this. It happens. Hello, Janet, to you. And if anybody has questions, please feel free to put them in the chat room. We'll answer them, and hopefully get everybody's questions in tonight. So, what got you into the paranormal field? What was it that said I want to try this?
Well, I always had an interest in the paranormal, mostly from early on when I was a kid, mostly from the storytelling side of things, the local legends, the folklore, listening to my grandmother share a lot of her stories growing up in the Appalachian Mountains. That's really where I got my interest in the paranormal. And then, of course, I spent as much time as I could in the libraries talking to some of the old timers and different folks in the area, listening to their stories. That was really my passion for it. But I really didn't get into the paranormal until it was just under 15 years ago, and I was approached by a guy that I worked with. He saw that my background was in photography and graphic design, and so he wanted me to look at some photos and determine if they were legit photos, maybe see if I was able to debunk or come up with a logical explanation for some of the different activity that he was capturing in these photos. And so I looked at a lot of different photos, and after some time, he invited me to go on an investigation with him, which was of a local bar and marina there in downtown Chattanooga, and had some amazing experiences. These guys had been investigating the paranormal, I believe, for probably 8 or 9 years whenever I joined up with them on their investigation. So learned a lot from them and was really able to cut my teeth in some great places. Joined the team, and I was with them for right about 8 years, and then that's when I ended up going off on my own and creating Ghost Biker Explorations. And of course, now we're rolling into the 6th season, filming for that, and it's going to release here in October.
So you got 6 seasons under your belt, and I'm just trying to get my YouTube channel off the ground for the paranormal. Oh my God. Susan Purcell, good evening to you as well. Thanks for joining in. And I apologize for the background. It has my music podcast on there, so I apologize. So anyway, I don't care. That's what makes a good podcast, like I said.
That's right. And you never know. We're in a haunted location here, so you never know. Anything could go wrong or happen.
That's very true. So I'm very interested on, especially the elder, like grandmas and stuff. I mean, all these people that we've grown up with, especially like hearing these stories from our grandparents and great grandparents who, luckily enough, who got to meet them. I didn't. But for you, hearing your grandmother talk about these legends and these tall tales, what was going through your mind? And did you ever see anything possibly that she talked about?
Well, I tell you, I absolutely loved it. I mean, my grandmother, she lived next door, and she ended up passing away in 2003. She was 95 years old when she passed away. So I was 23 when she passed. So I got to spend a lot of time with her. And then my grandmother and grandpa on my mom's side of the family, they were alive up until just a few years ago. And so I was very, very blessed to be able to spend that time with both sets of my grandparents. The only one that I didn't meet was my grandpa Young. And what's crazy is he was actually my grandpa. He was born in 1889. He
Wow.
was 21 years older than my grandma. And so, so a lot of stories going from way, way back. And especially my grandma Young, she was one who she would, we called them haints and boogers around here, which would basically be ghosts and cryptids. And so she shared a lot of those different stories growing up in the Appalachian Mountains. And some of them were more folklore based, like talking about, hanging the horseshoes over your door and
Mm.
not sweeping under somebody's feet before they're married, that sort of thing, and telling the weather based on the woolly worms and stuff. So she told a lot of those stories, but she also told a lot of stories of different things that she had encountered. And for me personally, I sat and I took all that in, and honestly, I was kind of a skittish child, from hearing a lot of the stuff. I loved hearing the stories, but I didn't want to go to sleep at night, because some of them were pretty creepy.
Oh yeah.
And then of course, like I said, I spent a lot of time in the libraries checking out a lot of the books like Haunting in the Appalachians and Haunting in the Hills, those different books that shared a lot of those other stories. I can't say that I ever encountered anything like what she talked about, but I did spend a lot of time as a kid going to different locations that were rumored to be haunted, spending a lot of time in cemeteries, here and it's probably the same way there in Eastern Kentucky where you're at. I didn't realize cemeteries closed at dark, because around here there's so many, and there's so many just little mountain cemeteries that are around.
Mm.
You could just essentially go in one of your friends' backyards and there was a cemetery, and you could ghost hunt in it.
Here's my thing though. I just wonder if she even mentioned possibly of like Dogman or Sasquatch. I mean, anything like that. Can you recall any stories possibly about that? Maybe.
Not that she had encountered, but she would always tell us not to, because we lived right there at the woods. Like I said, it was lived right next door to me, and there was probably, I think we had about 13 acres, and probably maybe, I don't know, like 10 of them was woods. And so she was always telling us stories about not going into the woods after dark. And when we'd run up through the field from her house to my mom and dad's, it was always, just watch out because you never know what might come out of the woods and and pick you up. Whether it be a Sasquatch, skunk ape, or a dog man, you never know.
Hello, Sonia Thompson. How are you, Miss? I'm from
Miss
The Walking
Miss
Dead.
Walking Dead.
That's right. Yeah, and we lost. Was it Larry this year or last year? Larry. That was heartbreaking. Very, very awesome guy. Very humble guy, and sucks he's passed on. But
I never had the opportunity to meet him, but
oh, he's
Sonia is definitely a really dear friend. That's met her at a convention, and we became fast friends. And she's been someone that's helped me out, as far as like with my move and all these different things I've been involved in. So definitely good people.
I was lucky enough to meet both of them, Sonia and Larry, and man, Larry's just a great guy, and Sonia's a awesome person too. Glad you're in here, Sonia, and everybody. Thank you all. So when you got asked to join the paranormal team, what was your expectations going into that? Was you kind of on the what if side of it, or was you just let's do this?
Well, I was very excited because, a lot of the photos that I had looked at, I was able to come up with a lot of explanations for, and uh, when he would send me something, I always had a ton of questions about, why did he take these pictures? What was going on at the time? What camera was he using? So I've always believed, but coming at it from that side, getting to go on my first investigation, I'll be honest, I was pretty nervous because here I was, this guy that I didn't know, I'd been looking at photos, is like, "Hey, want to come hang out in a haunted building with me and this other guy?" And so it's like I'm not really sure what to expect. I had watched I had never really watched Ghost Hunters, but I had watched a few episodes, a few seasons, I guess, of Ghost Adventures at the time.
Mhm.
And so I was really fascinated, and I think I was really curious to see it is what we're experiencing or what they're experiencing kind of like what I'm going to experience. You just never know what's made for TV and what's in entertainment and what's real. So going in, and like I said, I had spent time going to cemeteries and doing really, really novice ghost hunting. But to meet up with those guys and to be able to see some of the tools and stuff that, because again, they had been doing this for about 7 or 8 years, to see the tools and go in and really watch them, they were great. They gave me a recorder to take with me. And so we go in, and I'll never forget when the flashlights started responding in real time. And not just the flashlights responding, but actually getting disembodied voices at the same time. So we were getting correlating activity happening at the same time. And hearing these disembodied voices when I'm the only female there, and actually hearing another female's voice speaking in Spanish, or a another man that, when the two guys are standing right there beside me, I was actually touched for the first time as well. And when it happened, it was one of those things where I was having a conversation. So the story behind the location that we went, it was a local bar in Marina, and so they're in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And so the story behind it, there was two spirits that they knew of that haunted the location. One of them was a security guard who used to patrol the marina, and he had had a heart attack and fell into the water, and
Mm.
he ended up passing. The other was a lady who was a regular, and so she would go into the bar, and she was in there, if not every day, she was in there a couple times a week. So she would go in, and she actually had her own seat that she always sat in, and she had certain drinks that she got. And so the guy who was on the team, he was one of the owners of or one of the managers there at the restaurant. So we knew these stories firsthand, but what I was doing was I was in there and I was wanting to have a drink with the lady spirit there at the bar. And I didn't know what kind of drink she liked. So I was in there calling off different drinks, trying to get validation through the different tools. So as that was happening, it felt like something kind of like just like a tap, 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 tap on my hip. And so I was thinking, because I was standing there, because I was stressed, it had been a long day. And here I am standing here in the middle of the night after working all day at this restaurant. And I thought, it's like a muscle spasm in my leg, was what I thought.
Yeah.
So I ignore it and I continue asking different questions. Keeps happening. It happened 3 times. And on the third time, something goes pull, pull, pull on my pocket. And so that was one of those things where it was like, okay, so it's not a muscle spasm. It's something potentially more. And so that was really interesting, because that was happening as I was calling different drinks out. And right whenever that pull happened on my pants pocket, I think I had called out a specific drink, and the flashlights had started going off at that point. But to be able to hear that stuff in the moment, and then be able to go take that recorder that I had, sit there and listen to the evidence, and actually have a hands-on experience for my first time investigating, was very cool. And I'll never forget whenever I heard those first EVPs, it was like that mix of adrenaline, but also kind of sick to your stomach, because it's like, wait a minute, now I know there was not somebody there, and there was not somebody, responding. We did not hear that voice, or to know the voices that we did hear in the moment and know that the recorder actually caught it was just so cool. And we were able to get some really interesting validation. So from that point on, I was absolutely hooked.
See, that was going to be my next question about, when you got your first recorder. But to back up just a little bit, save the expectations, far and beyond at that point.
Oh, far and beyond. Yeah. Because at that point, I did that investigation, and then I was able to go on, I believe, two more investigations, and one of them was a residential. The other was an investigation of a school. And it was kind of a secret type investigation where they let us in. We just couldn't release any evidence because of the nature of the location that we were at.
Sure. Sure.
And so the team ended up we had great chemistry, and so they ended up inviting me to join the team. And from that point on, I mean, we were investigating somewhere, usually at least once a month, if not a couple times a month. There in Chattanooga, there are a lot of houses that are in the Lookout Mountain area, which has a lot of Civil War activity there, and also in Chickamauga, Georgia. So a lot of those areas had a lot of activity based on the Civil War and happenings that had happened on the land. So we did a lot of residential, but we usually tried to hit some type of commercial location, if not once a month, at least once every 2 months, we were going to some type of commercial location. So it was at that point just I was, head in at that point. And my first travel location that I did travel to and spend a full weekend at was Octagon Hall there in Franklin, Kentucky.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is such a cool place. And that was my first actually trip getting to travel with everyone. And we made it a full weekend. And that was a traditional trip every year that we took. We would go up, we would spend time with Billy Bird and, volunteer and do different things at Octagon Hall during the day. And, just to get to experience that place for a full weekend is definitely something I would recommend, because the activity is never the same both days when you're there.
Well, okay, so we're going back to Octagon Hall in July. We were there 13 years ago, and I felt like we didn't get a satisfactory investigation.
Okay.
You're an investigator. You know what that means. It's like everything and all. I mean, doesn't matter what just went wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we need to go back because we need to do this again. We need to a second investigation to do a recharge because it was really eating at me. And for some reason, it just my gut just said go back, go back, go back. So we're going back in July, and I cannot wait. And I hope this time is better, but I just cannot. I gotta calm down and don't psych myself out, because that is the worst thing you can ever do, and be so disappointed at a location. Don't watch TV. If you want to do ghost hunting, don't watch this TV bull crap. Okay, that's what it is. It's made for TV, because TV is TV, and when you go do a ghost hunt, it's like fishing.
That's
You
exactly
watch.
right.
You sit, watch, and listen for hours. Hours.
That is that no truer statement. I mean, I feel as though TV has, there's positive and negative to it, because
True.
I feel like that TV has done a disservice to ghost hunting or true investigating, because people don't realize, they do think a lot happens in a short period of time. And that was my thing. I didn't know what to expect. You don't know if it's going to be something like you see in the horror movies, or if it's going to be something like you see on the paranormal entertainment shows. But it doesn't happen in a short period of time. There's a lot of sitting around. To me, I get so excited about the subtle things that happen. The big grand things we've had pictures pulled off the wall. People have caught shadow figures pulling pictures off the wall here.
Oh,
We've
wow.
had some incredible captures that have happened here, and we share those. But the thing is, that doesn't happen for everybody. And if you don't do this, and like you said, it can cause an unsatisfactory investigation because of the expectations. But we always tell the investigators, it's like, make sure you definitely, if you don't have some big dramatic experience here, definitely go back and listen to your audio, because you never know what you're going to capture, because we really
That's
get
it.
that. And watch out for the subtleties, because some of the
Mhm.
subtleties that happen here are huge. And we've been able to connect history and fill in some of the gaps in our stories that we have, based on some of the captures that we've gotten here at the jail. So So I totally get that. But then on the flip side, I do feel that the paranormal entertainment shows have really done a good job as far as making paranormal more mainstream and reaching a larger audience, which has in turn turned around and caused an increase in the historic restoration and preservation of these locations, and then just an increased love for history.
Yeah, I cannot, vouch on that. That is 1,000% truthful right there, because for me, it's the historical side of it. I know things happen at these locations, but I don't care about, oh, such and such killed this one or this one hung themselves.
Mhm.
I don't care about that. It's the history factor of the location. That's what I love.
Yes.
And you're so right about just sitting there, and all of a sudden you hear a disembodied voice that comes through and says a sentence and
Yes.
and cusses you. You're like, "Dude, did you just cuss me?" And Robert's like, "No, no, I didn't." And I know it's not him, but I'm just seeing, just messing with him. And
Mhm.
then there's those subtle ones that you're sitting there and you can't see your hand in front of your face, because that's what I like. I love that. And you get that like little, how can I explain? Like a little like gnat or a moth that flies by your ear, and then you hear somebody whispering, and you get that like little shake, that little shudder. Oh man, that right there flies all over me. I cannot stand it when they do. I'm just like, look, just say it. Don't have to whisper and get me all tore up. Just say it. We've had disembodied voices at the William Edgar Heyman house
I've heard
when we
good things about the Heyman House,
yes.
and I'll tell you, an interesting place that I had a really cool experience with a disembodied voice was last month, or actually it was, yeah, it was last month. I was speaking there at St. Albans Sanatorium, and so I was there for 2 days. And the first night, they let all of us investigate, or not investigators, but presenters and lecturers do a private investigation. And then on the second night was a public investigation that we led. And so on the first night, I ended up going separately with my friend Tiffany White. We were there. We spent. I mean, I would say there was probably maybe 15 or 20 investigators on the property, but St. Albans is so big, you don't run into anybody.
Oh
And
sure.
so we never, except for one time, we never saw anyone. And so we had gone down into isolation. And when we got down there, we walked in, and I was telling her, I was like, isolation is just really cool. I had investigated there by myself the last time I was there, and got something I was sitting on the floor and something came crawling at me. It was really weird. So I'm telling her about this. And when we walk in, we hear a lady singing in the back. So we thought there was somebody hosting a session in the back corner of isolation. So we stopped. We're like, oh, goodness, there's somebody back there. And we both heard her singing.
Oh wow.
And all of a sudden, I think we said, "We're sorry," and we didn't hear nothing, and we said, "Hello," and we walked around the corner, and there was nobody there.
Yeah.
And what was wild about it is if you stay in there long enough, you will start to hear some outside contamination. But when we walked into that area, it was amazing just how quiet it was. It was almost like we were in a sensory deprived state. And it's great when you hear those disembodied voices, but whenever
Yes.
you have multiple people there that hear them, I don't know, it gives me chills and makes me excited every time.
That's even better for the skeptics, who come and do that stuff. They're like, look, did you hear what I hear? And I'm like, I think I did. So, no, you didn't
Absolutely.
think you did. You did.
And then when that recorder captures it too, you just can't beat that.
Copperhead. I know you met Copperhead at the
I
last.
did.
He's a great, great guy. I love that guy to death. He's part of my team. And there was something that happened at the Heyman house that I'll never forget. We were on the second floor, and he was at the base camp. I call it base camp, but he was in the kitchen setting up. And I always do this if we got somebody with us. I'm like, look, if you're here with us, can you go downstairs or wherever and let that person know that you're here? And I said, I want to hear it up here. I want you to do
Mhm.
something loud enough that I could hear it.
Mhm.
30, 40 seconds later, there's a big wooden shutter on the window that flies open. And
Wow.
Copperhead's like, I didn't do that. It's like, no, I asked him to. And that's not even the best one. The best one was later on that night. He did shaving a haircut at base camp in the kitchen again. And
Uh-huh.
then there's a female that goes, hmm. And we just looked at each other, and I had chills that went up me. I was like, "Did you hear that?" He's like, "I sure did." He's like, "Please tell me you had your recorder going." I said, "Nope. Every time something happens, I don't. No, no. I did have recording. I did have recording. I do have it captured. So that is the time that I did. I did have both times recording. So I that's another place I want to go back to. So if anybody wants another place to go investigate, Heyman House in West Virginia, go. It is well worth it.
I've heard good things about the Heyman House. I've not been able to go yet, but I've heard several people that's gone that just said that it was just a fantastic place to go.
So how did you come to be the co-owner of this historic Scott County jail? Let's talk about that a little bit.
So, I mean, honestly, I just got to say it's really a dream come true because to be able, I mean, this is my job, and to be able to go from, 21 years working in the corporate world and a hobby of paranormal investigating and a hobby of motorcycle riding, to be able to combine those passions, get into the paranormal and do it like I was with, putting videos out and traveling. I met one of my dearest friends, Dr. Christy Sumner, who is also the co-owner here at the historic Scott County Jail. And so we met through the paranormal and doing an investigation in North Carolina at Henry River Mill Village. And we really hit it off. We found that we both had a strong love of the historical side of the paranormal. And so she was putting videos out, and of course I was putting videos out, and we didn't really know it before we met, but we were following each other, and that's how we ended up connecting.
Yeah.
And so in 2020, I had an opportunity to where I needed to move back home to my hometown. And so of course, I'm originally from here in Scott County. And so the jail has always been, I've known about it as long as I've been here. And it's always, going to the library as a kid, we could look over and I could see the inmates hanging out the windows here at the jail, and the cop cars coming and going and stuff. And I always wondered what it was like inside, and wondered if it was haunted. And so back in 2017, the jail, they did get a tourism grant for the jail. And so they did a lot of repairs to it, but they didn't know what they were going to do with it. And so through talking to a friend who worked in the government here locally, I found out that they weren't really doing anything still with the jail, even after getting the tourism grant. So I reached out to my friend Chris, and I said, I'd like to see if we can maybe do something with this. Are you interested in coming in on this with me? Because I know there's too much for one person to do with the things I've got in mind. Didn't want to open it just as a paranormal location. We wanted to make it accessible to the community and really be able to share Scott County history. So the idea was to open it as a true crime museum during the day and have it as a paranormal research center at night, and really just a community structure to where we could do different things like escape rooms, or host different events here in the jail whenever we're not doing the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chris was at an opportunity in her life where she was able to jump on board and be like, hey, let's do this. So we got a business plan together. We approached the mayor here in Huntsville with our plan, and we had to meet with him as well as the alderman, and it was essentially a 3-phase plan, and they loved it. So they gave us the opportunity, which was, I'm beyond grateful for that. They gave us the opportunity to come in here, and so we were able to start from a blank slate. And I had known all my life, I had known several of the stories from here about the sheriff who was killed at the front door, about the lynchings that had taken place here at the jail, but I didn't know just how much history this building held. And also that I even have some family that worked here in the very, very early years. And so it was just something that coming in, we learned something new every day. And just with this history and being able to share it and being able to have people who around the world are sharing stories about some of the different events and some of the different people that's happened in this little small country jail, as is just mind blowing to me. And then to be able to combine all of those passions and actually do that as a job is truly just a dream come true.
Oh, sure. That's one thing I want to do. That I want to make, purchase a paranormal location and do like you guys. Because a lot, like you said, I mean, a lot of these places have a lot of history that needs to be told, and you see the black eye of it normally. You don't
You
see
do.
exactly else about it. So
You do, and, I mean, I'm so just grateful and pleased with our investigators that we've had. We opened in September of 2021, and to date, we've been open for a year and a half, and to date, we've had just under 100 investigators that excuse me, that have come here to the jail and investigated. And some of the evidence that they walk away with, like I said, we've been able to fill in holes with some of our history and actually validate some of this from authors and true historians. And essentially these paranormal investigators, even though we're open for daytime general admission tours, the paranormal investigators that travel around over here and investigate, that's what allows us to keep the doors open, because the
oh
money
sure.
that we make, it goes back into the location. Even though this is, mine and Chris's full-time job, it goes back into the location. And I mean, I'm just always excited when somebody comes up to us and we just filmed there was a ghost hunting show that just filmed here, not this past weekend, but the weekend before that. And then this past weekend, we had a team out of Minnesota come. So when people are including us, like I said, a little small unknown jail, when they're
Yeah.
including us on their paranormal travels with locations like Octagon Hall and Tala and Waverly Hills, it's very humbling, really, because to be grouped in with that and have people excited. And again, some of the evidence that they're coming out with is mind blowing. And my business partner, she says it best. We're a small jail, but pack a big paranormal punch.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I guarantee the person who's out there filming was probably my good friend Brandon. I won't say the name
It
because
was. It was.
I've known look, I've known Brandon since he was out in California when he had APRA. I know Brandon even before, way before the whole ghost hunters thing. So that man has busted his ass, and I'm sorry if anybody gets offended for me saying ass, but it's the truth. He has
He
busted
has.
his ass a long time for this.
And I have to say, for him here to be filming here, that's really big for us, because as you know from him, he does take such a great approach with the way he investigates and looks at things with his scientific approach and looking at empirical data and everything. I mean, we were really thrilled. We don't know what they captured and can't wait to see the episode, but we did have some conversations with them afterwards, and they did get some interesting activity. And so really, and that they did share a little bit about. So we just can't wait. And just the epitome of professionalism. And
Oh
you
yeah.
just don't see that a whole lot. And that's very, very much appreciated.
So I want to get to the people that's in the chat room. I'm sure Miranda, you've seen these in here too. So Chris is in here. She's chatting it up. She says our little jail
That's my
really likes.
business partner.
She says our little jail really likes to talk for sure, and that's good. I like places like that. But when I come, it'll probably just shut down. So that's probably what's going to happen. She also says it's an honor to be co-owners of the jail with Miranda and historic. And she says the historic Scott County Jail is an awesome place for sure, and it's on my bucket list for next year. That is something we're going to be coming down there for.
We can't wait.
Susan Purcell, and then Susan, I'm sorry if I'm screwing your name up. Trust me. It is awesome. Thanks, Miranda Young and Chris at Sumner for everything. Chris says Brandon and the entire team and crew was so much fun to have at the jail. Oh yeah, Brandon and Mustafa, they're great people.
Yeah.
I cannot wait till this Haunted Discoveries comes out. I cannot wait.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Project Fear, those two that's coming out on I guess YouTube and all these streaming platforms. Trust me, folks, going to be game changers. I think.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And, you bringing Copperhead with you when you guys come?
oh yeah, he's part of the
All
team.
right, all right. I'm
He's
looking
part of
forward
the
to
team.
seeing it. It's so funny because the first 2 years that I did, speaking there at St. Albans, this was my 3rd year going, and for the first year was obviously 2020, and that was just a, cluster, but, he didn't come, and then he for some reason, he wasn't able to make it last year, so this was the first year that I was able to meet him, and so we ended up having dinner, and he was sitting there beside us with Scott Sukkel, and it was so cool to hear some of his stories from
Oh yeah.
Tala and from some of the different places, and he shared a lot of different evidence with me during the day. So yeah, and I was telling him, and he was saying, "Yeah, I need to get down there to the Scott County Jail."
He is somebody that I look up to that I can take something to and not get ridiculed or made fun of or whatever. I mean, he can actually say if it's legit or not, because there's stuff that we don't know. I mean,
Sure.
we can assume that it is, but who knows? But the stories that Copperhead has told me, and we're going to get on to more of the interview, folks. Trust me, I got some more questions for Miss Miranda Young here. I'm going to test her skills here in a minute. But Copperhead says that, hey, you could be anywhere and I not be there, and I guarantee my name will come through on a question.
He
Well,
he shared some of that, yeah.
he's legit, because when we was at the Scott County, well, Franklin
Mhm,
Historical Society in Scott County, there,
mhm,
um, we was at the Old Stone Jail, but we was at the Historical Society part of it.
mhm.
We was doing an Estes method. Justin had 2 sets of headphones on, so he had the buds and he had the earphones. So there's no way he could have heard the question that I asked. I said, "What is the name of our third member who is not here, but he's well known in the paranormal field and beyond the realm?" I said, "What is his nickname, his first name, whatever?" I said, "Give me something." Wasn't even maybe 20, 30 seconds later, says Copper. I said, "Oh my God." That is going to be in our video when it comes out. So you got to see this, but I could not believe it. I about just said, "Okay, I'm done. This is paid for. I'm ready to go home. This is over with." Um,
Sometimes when certain things, isn't that such a wonderful experience when you go to a place and, like you were talking about kinda having that unsatisfactory experience, but when you go to a place and just that one profound thing happens, and it can be something very simple, you're like, "You
yeah,
know what? The whole night. I don't care if nothing else happens. This was just very cool. And I love those experiences like that. And for me, most of the time, they're pretty simple. But, there's nothing better than when you get something like that happen that it's just like, okay, I'm done. If nothing else happens, this is it. This is
yeah.
great.
I was done. I said, "Thank you. Thank you for answering that question," because he's never been there, Miranda. He's never stepped foot on that property. He's been never. He's not even been in that county. Nowhere. And for that to say that, I was like, man, okay, okay. So I'm gonna try this Estes method some more next time. So, and that's the first time I saw the Estes method done right in front of me. I've never seen it done before.
I
Trippy.
really like the Estes method.
Yeah.
I've had some real good experiences with it. Got some really interesting things on it, and I always have a camera on myself and the other person that's participating in it, or the group, whoever's there. It's always good to have the two cameras because I like to be in separate locations if possible, or separate rooms, and you just never know what
No.
is going to happen around you, because it's not just, and that's one of the things, because some people are always like, trying to record an Estes session as far as like recording the voice and stuff. But to me, I feel like it loses the point, because you are the person who has the headphones on. You are the conduit. You are the medium, if you will. And it's not just about what you're hearing, but it's also about what you're experiencing when you're in that sensory deprived state with your headphones on, your eyes covered, um, you know, wearing a heart monitor while you're doing it, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different factors that go into play when you go into that sensory deprived state. That's not just the words that come across the spirit box, but it's the entire experience. And sometimes you can catch some really cool things just on video.
Yes, you can. Folks, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in here. We'll answer them. I got to know, when did you and Chris realize that the jail was haunted or even had activity at all? What happened? I got to know that sparked your guys' interest and said, oh, wait, we're sitting on something here.
Well, it's one of those things when you start to get in, especially when you're opening a museum, a tourist location during a pandemic, it's intimidating and scary. But I had actually investigated the jail back in 2014. And so the jail was in operation. Let me just kind of jump back a few minutes. It was in operation from 1904 until 2008. It stayed vacant from 08 until 2017 when they got the tourism grant, and then continued to be vacant until we opened it in 2017. So when I investigated it in 2014, it was still in its very, very gritty, dirty state before they had even got the grant. And so one of the things that comes to mind when I think back to that initial first investigation was in the drunk tank. I was able to capture some disembodied sobbing and a female who was just clearly distraught and upset. She was sobbing, she was crying, and she was saying something while she was crying. That was the main thing that I captured during that investigation, and several of it was disembodied, heard it in the moment. And so I knew that it was active to that extent. But of course, when you're considering opening it for individuals to actually pay money and come in and spend time in here, you never know. Plus, with everybody that's coming in with all the different techniques and experiments that people are going to try, you really truly don't know. So of course, Chris and I spent a lot of time. We got the keys about 2 months before we opened because we were getting the museum put together and getting cleaning and all this stuff done, getting it ready. And so we spent a lot of those 2 months investigating, but really the majority of the time we spent just coming in, talking to the spirits that were in here, really sharing our intentions about what we were, what we were intending to do, because we're essentially invading this space of these spirits that's been here for a long time and didn't have any real interaction. So one of the things that really kind of set it off, and Chris mentions it there. So there's two things that come to mind, but Chris mentions it there in the chat room. So while we had the keys for those 2 months, we were cleaning up the location, getting things ready, and I'm a bit of an OCD clean freak. And so I was upstairs on the second floor kitchen cleaning around the dumbwaiter system. And while I was up there cleaning, I ended up dislodging some contraband. It was actually a straight razor that was up there that had been hidden up around the dumbwaiter system. And so I put it there on the table because, we had all of our stuff, cleaning stuff on the second floor so that we could just kind of use that as a base camp for the floor above and the one below. And so I reached out to Chris because she wasn't in there at the time. And so I reached out to her and I said, "Hey, you're not going to believe what I found." Well, when she got back into town, I'd left it there on the table. When she got back into town, she came up and there was no razor. We have yet to find that razor blade.
Oh.
Well, only just a couple days after that, we ended up, our scissors went missing. They're a pair of red-handled scissors, and we have yet to find them. Now, the first team that was here investigating, we did share with them that we were missing call it missing our sharps. Any sharp object, they tend to like to move. And I got to tell you, I've heard other locations talk about, things missing and disappearing. And it's like, you just misplaced it. You weren't paying attention or whatever. I would have never believed it if it hadn't happened to us. And so, but a team, we did share with them that we were missing some of our sharp items. And so one of the EVPs that they got when they asked what the owners of the jail was missing, they ended up getting the EVP of scissors. which was so cool. And of course, when we share this story during our flashlight tours and stuff, we give the people on the flashlight tours a K2 meter to carry around with them. And every time we share that story about that missing, the K2s start going off like they're back and forth, like they're laughing at us. And I know one day we're going to actually find those scissors. The other thing that, was just, to me, really just convinced me that, hey, yeah, there is definitely spirits here, and they're intelligent and they're aware, is after that same team, after they had left, we do stay on site whenever people are investigating, but we stay on site but out of sight. We lock ourselves in the office. You never know we're here. And so team had left. They'd been gone for about 30 minutes. So it was about 3:30 in the morning. I was coming out of the visitor center to take some stuff in here to the booking room to get things ready and leave. And as soon as I step out into the foyer there, I hear a hum. And I wasn't sure what I was hearing until it cleared its throat and continued humming. So it went for about 3 seconds, clears its throat, hums three more, and stops. And so it really kind of shook me up because I wasn't expecting it. And then I was also a little bit pissed off because I was like, I didn't have my recorder. And so I end up going back into the gift shop to get my stuff to leave. And you can see on the camera, I'm a little bit just like, I'm kind of wringing my hands a little bit, just like, I can't believe I just heard that.
Yeah.
So I get my stuff. And when I leave, I reach out to Chris and I'm like, hey, when you come in tomorrow, pull the footage from around 3:30 because I heard something humming up on what I believe was between the second and third story there on the stairwell because it was real echoey. And I said, let's see if the security camera footage caught it. So the next morning, she messages me and she was like, we didn't catch the hum, but we caught these two voices. And so we pulled the security camera footage. And sure enough, you see me walk back into the room and it's the exact same timestamp I told her. And I walk into the room and there are two voices, one male, one female. And it says, there she is. And the other says, not so loud next time. And so our spirits, we believe that whoever was in there at that time was like, okay, don't make so much noise, either
Yeah.
because they were afraid they were disturbing me or afraid that they were going to get caught. And so it was actually so compelling that the local news channel out of Knoxville, they actually ended up highlighting it on one of their Halloween specials and playing the EVPs on the news there, which was really cool. And to me, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, our spirits, they are just not only intelligent, but they're aware of what we're doing, and they want to let us know. So to me, those were the two things that just really convinced me that, hey, there's there's definitely activity here, and these spirits want to have their story told.
Sure. So, do you think that's the best piece of evidence that's captured your attention so far, or no?
No, no.
Oh,
No, just from some of the things that's been caught here. I mean, the shadow figures that people see here are absolutely incredible. We do novice guided ghost hunts here, which is a 3-hour immersive guided ghost hunt with myself and with Dr. Sumner. And we had a group of people here. There were 6 people. I had 3 downstairs. She had 3 upstairs, and we were conducting an experiment there right in front of the drunk tanks. And we tell the people, if they've never investigated, hey, when you snap pictures, snap 3 at one time so you got something to go back and reference. And so this lady, she had never been on a ghost hunt before. I don't even know if she had done, a ghost walk or anything before, but we were getting intelligent responses. So she pulled her camera out and snapped 3 pictures. And before the night was over, she comes in and she's like, I think I got something. And so we looked through the 3 pictures, and sure enough, there is a almost 7-foot shadow figure standing right in front of the door. 2 pictures, he's not in. The other one, he is. We do believe that could potentially be the spirit of Sheriff Ellis. He was unique in the fact that he was 6'8". He was a very
wow.
tall individual. Yeah. And so he's one we do get a lot of residual and intelligent activity from. And he ran under the stance that he was going to abolish moonshine here in the community. And so he was caught right in, or this shadow figure was caught right in front of the drunk tank, which would be somewhat appropriate for that. But the other thing, like I said, there's so many things. The disembodied voices, the footsteps. We'll get footsteps up on the third floor that when we're given a tour, we can pinpoint it. We've caught it on our cameras and we've been able to triangulate using multiple cameras. But we've been able to pinpoint which side of the jailer's walk and which part of the bullpen these footsteps are on. And what's crazy about it is they go between 13 to 15 footsteps. And so I'm 6 foot tall, and I went back into the jailer's walk there and walked it, and that was about how many footsteps it would take from me to go from one end of our largest cell block to the other. So we do believe that the individual is probably around my height and wearing combat boots. And so we've also been able to find that it tends to happen around the top of the hour, anywhere from 10 till to right around midnight. And it's kind of random. It happens during the day. He'll follow you sometimes during the day, but it's wild when it happens because if you are up there and you hear it and acknowledge it, it doesn't stop. It keeps going, and it's you're kind of like, wow, somebody's busted in on us. There's somebody walking around.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it is the fact it doesn't stop is really wild. And then we've had another instance where this was caught on camera, and it was amazing because there's one of the things that's captured on the second floor. The second floor is by far the creepiest, I think. And you get a woman that says help a lot. We're not sure if she's associated with the jail, if she's a ruse to try to get you out of the cell and into a different area, or if maybe she's associated with some of the articles that we have up on the wall. But a lot of people get her saying help. And so there was a team, RKB Paranormal, who was there in the kitchen. They hear the woman say help. All of their tools start going off. They pick up their camera, open the door, and shine their camera out there into the hallway. And once they get it out there, they're kind of panning the camera around. Three things happen. There is a shadow that you see on the right hand of the screen kind of appear and disappear. You see a light anomaly kind of come down on the camera there. And right after the light anomaly comes down, this picture that's on the wall literally rips off the wall, flips in midair, and goes 4.5 feet. Now, when you slow the camera footage down, when it comes off the wall, as it starts to fall, a shadow arm comes out and literally flings the picture 4.5 feet. We tried to debunk it with the team because they came and got me immediately. And it's like, okay, this is badass. So we
Yeah.
go in there, and I cannot get the picture to fall anything other than straight down. And so even with forcing it, even with taking and thinking, okay, if it's coming off this side, if I force this side down, we could not get that to flip in midair. And so then Chris came in the next morning, and she tried everything from even trying to make sure that there was no suction from the door when they opened it. There's no glass in the door. There's open, frame. So, it's not going to cause any type of suction, but we could never recreate that. And I know between the two of us, we spent a good hour trying to figure that out. And just them capturing all three well, it was really more than three things because you had the voice and the tools going off, but to capture all of that and to actually have the picture, being ripped off, and catching the shadow figure as well with all the other stuff going on around it was incredible. I mean, honestly, my mind is blown on a weekly basis, with some of the different things that are captured here.
I know Sonia just put in here that she smelled flowers like perfume there last week and a burnt sawdust wood smell. So that's yeah, that would make sense.
She does, yeah. I took her. She was in town, helping me with my move back up here to Scott County, and took her on a tour of the jail, and that was one of the first things. And that was on the second floor where she smelled all that. And that's something we get that's common here. We get smells, we get whistles, we get uh, phantom key jingling sounds. We get the smell of pot over here on the first floor. It's wild. You'll think that I know one night I'm sitting in there working and I'm like, this team is in there token up in the room next door. And just like, seriously? And apparently that team was like, she's sitting in there
Smoking it.
smoking a fat one in, in the gift shop. And so they literally walk in and I'm like, and they were like, yeah. And so, it was it's really strong when it happens. But they did used to burn the crops whenever they would go and confiscate the crops. They would burn them in the field, which is or the yard, which is right next door to the jail here. And at the time, there was not windows on the upper, or there was no glass on the windows there on the upper floors. And so the inmates would all kind of huddle over to the side. And so it would not be uncommon for that to be a phantom smell here in the jail.
So that they really can't say, "Well, you guys are high." Well, yeah, I know we are, man.
Right?
Can't get over another charge. Okay, you did it, not me. So Janet has two questions. Let me see. The first one, I'm pretty sure you can see it too. There it says, "I have a question. Why do you think so many spirits have stayed behind at the historic Scott County Jail there? What do you think?"
I've got multiple theories for that. Several of them just has to do with the way the building is. The building is made out of 4 by 5 or excuse me, 3 by 4 by 5 foot thick sandstone blocks. We're in a sandstone castle, and of course, sandstone is very rich in quartz, and all of that is a very good conductor. Plus, you've got all the iron bars that are on the doors and on the inside. I mean, we're essentially, you can almost look like we're almost in a Faraday cage, with on the upper floors. But we're completely surrounded by iron. And then back in behind the jail, New River, there's a little waterfall. New River sometimes is, if it rains, especially, it's quite a rushing little river back there. And so also with the land, we have had two minor Civil War skirmishes that did take place here, the Battle of Huntsville and the Battle of Brimstone Mountain. Those did take place here as well. And then also, I mean, pretty much all of this area was native lands. And
Sure.
there are some native rock shelters and such, which is just back in behind the jail. So just the geology and some of the historical things that happened around the area. But then on top of that, all of the emotion and all of the things that happened here. We've had 6 inmates that we know of. We know there's more, but 6 inmates that we know of that were taken out of here via mob mountain justice, where different masked mob people came in, took them out from their cells, lynched them on different places on the property. We've had suicides. We've had natural deaths. We've also had local sheriff who was killed there at the door. Just to name a few, we've, I mean, those are just the events that we know of. And when you think of that every day-to-day life,
Yeah.
there was a lot of emotion and a lot of things, especially residual energy, a lot of things that happened. This was always a community building up until from 1904 up until 1961. The jailer and their family lived on site. So this bottom level where I'm sitting now was the living quarters. So you had families that grew up here. And so then you have just that everyday experience that kids and families have that could essentially make a residential location haunted.
Mhm.
You had that happen here at the jail. So I believe all of that. But then also part of the reason that I think a lot of the spirits stick around is because, they're wanting to have their story shared. They're wanting to, they're wanting to, because that's the way we approach it. We approach it not so much as interrogating them about what they did,
Yeah.
but just having conversation. So I believe a lot of them want to share their story. And in a few instances, I think a couple of them have kind of stuck around because they were so connected to the location. Sheriff Ellis was not only killed here, but he was also, he loved his job. And he did die suddenly. And so I think he kind of sticks around because he's interested in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And he kind of watches out for us over some of the more ornery, jailed inmates. And then a couple inmates who and sheriffs who were long term serving people here, they just have that connection with the location, and so I believe a lot of their energy is still stuck here. So great question, and sorry for the long winded answer.
No, that's fine. I just got a couple more questions, and we'll get you out of
Mhm.
here. But I'm excited. See, now you got me hyped up about wanting to come down there, and when I come down there, I guarantee. Did you get anything? No, not really. So anyway, that happens. So, what expectations do you think people have leading up to before they come to the location versus actually going through that investigation and maybe having something happen?
That's a great question too, because it's a struggle as a location owner, because obviously you want to share these great experiences that people have had, and we put those out there, and then of course the teams put them out there. And it's tough because we want everybody to have a picture getting ripped off the wall or some of the grand experiences that happen here. We want that, and it's always, as a location owner, you're sitting on the end of your seat. I don't know if every location does this, but I know Chris and I do. We hope that people leave and have a great experience. If Even if they don't get activity, we hope that they're at least enjoying it enough from all the history that we have, because I mean, we've got 3 floors full of history, and we tell people, because there are certain articles that do trigger activity, we encourage them to read and, you know, see if it does trigger activity. And so we've had a lot of people that maybe have left, that maybe they didn't have a grand experience that they know of, and they were going to go listen to their audio and stuff, but they said that, we really enjoyed it because there was so much history and we learned a whole lot, and it was just great being immersed in it. um, I think a lot of people come in hopeful, and we've never had anyone that's been vocal to us as far as disappointed. I mean, I can't say everybody has left with something, but it's, I mean, personally, it is hard because you do want to share those experiences, but you don't want to hype a place up and then people leave and say, "Ah, it's all hype." Yeah, that's the hardest part, I think, at least from our perspective, is you want to share it. But and when I give my tours, and I think Chris is probably very similar with how she does it, but when I give my tours at night, um, if we have a team come in, I always ask what they want to know. Some people want to come in blind. Some people want to just know the history. Some want to know the history and the hot spots. And some want to know history, hot spots, and what other people have captured. And
Yeah.
so I'll tell them that. I try to keep the tour brief, 30 minutes or less, not to eat up time. But I will always tell them, now, we've had shadow figures, we've had things getting ripped off the wall and everything, but if you want to see that stuff, come see me and I'll show it to you. And most of the people, once we say we've got a picture or we've got a video of a shadow figure ripping something off the wall, most people are like, I at least got to see that, or I got to hear those disembodied voices. So yeah, it's always, but we've had a lot of, we call them repeat offenders. We've had a ton of people who
That's good.
have booked, and they ended. We had one team just a few weeks ago that they came on a Saturday or Friday night, and on Saturday they messaged us and they're like, we've already booked our second time, and sure enough, right
Wow.
then it came through. Yeah, so they had a really good experience.
See, I'm catching the vibe from you and Chris. Like I said, we definitely, I can vouch and speak for Rob. I mean, yeah, we and Copperhead, yeah, we'll definitely be there for sure. But I just got a question for you as far as like an investigator to another investigator. I've been doing this for years. I took about 5 or 6 years off, but I'm back into it now. Oh, okay. So you hit something that very much happens to me a lot. We can go to a location and you think you're not getting anything, or just use the word dead. I don't mean that. You know, it just seems like it's dead. There's nothing going on. But I come home and my trusty little Blue Olympus recorder that I use is slapped full of stuff, and I'm going, is this real? I mean, for me to put like 12 EVPs in like 30 minutes, I'm going, man, okay, is this really legit? I mean, they're low EVPs, but
Yeah.
they're there. And I'm going, I don't know if I can put this out because I don't know if people's going to be like, it's bull crap. Well, no, it's not. It's here. I can't explain it.
Mhm.
I've always said you're connected with your equipment.
Yes.
So does that happen to you guys? Have you had anybody come in and have that experience also? They don't have anything. They go back and listen to the recorders. I mean, it's slap full of stuff.
Yeah, we've had people come back, and I mean, personally for myself, I've had that happen a lot.
Okay.
That's why a lot of the time I try not to, when I go to a location, I try not to get, if it doesn't seem like something happened. In fact, when I investigated for episode 1 of season 5 last year, I didn't feel like I really got a whole lot, but it's like I'm going to reserve those emotions and see what happens when I actually go through my footage. And I was blown away by some of the things that happened. And I was doing a 2-week investigation. So it was one Saturday night, and then I went back the next. And that next Saturday night, again, completely blown away with a few of the things that happened. Um, yeah, I mean, we see that happen a lot, and that's why we do tell people, make sure to definitely go listen to what you're doing. We've actually had that happen on lives quite a bit. We had a guy that was out of Toledo, Ohio, that came down, and he didn't really feel like he got a whole lot, but he did a live. And just during his live, he caught 2 really cool EVPs. One said, hello, and it either said hello or it said it's Joe, and the guy's name was Joe. And the other thing that we believe that it said was it's cold.
Mm,
And he was just having a conversation. Now, he didn't hear those in the moment. You know, a couple of the people who were watching his lives, they actually saw it and called it out in we snipped the live, and it we've got the EVPs from the live where it was snipped. And so yeah, that happens quite a bit and we've had several people that's like, well, I'll give you a really good example, and it's one that we play during our flashlight tours. So, Vicki Norris, who is there out of Franklin, Kentucky, and associated with Bill, there from the Old Stone Jail, she had come and investigated here, and she was, our drunk tanks is also our restroom, and so they're old jail cells that you can actually use the restroom in there, but so as investigators, a lot of the time we don't turn our recorders off
sure.
ever, when we're snacking or whenever we're taking a restroom break. And so I was the only person here. I was in the gift shop there, and she was the only person down here on this first floor. And so while she was there in the restroom, you hear her washing her hands, and you hear this. He has a very, very thick Southern accent,
Right.
and he's yelling, and he says, "Get on the floor, stand up now, and get out the door." And so, I mean, there was nobody here that sounded like that, and there was certainly nobody in the bathroom with her. And so she didn't hear it until after she had gone back, and she's sitting there listening to her recorder. And it's 3 full sentences,
Yeah.
and they sound just like something that a CO or something would be saying to somebody. And there was no way that anyone who was up on the 3rd floor that you would be capturing that, because it literally sounds like it's in the bathroom with her. And so, it's kinda hard to determine if that's residual or if it's intelligent because, those are things that could be residual for sure, but could have been saying something to her or to somebody else, trying to get them to get out the door. And so had she not gone back and listened to her evidence, if she had been like, oh, well, I didn't really get anything or I didn't feel anything. Oh, and this was where I was in the bathroom. I'm not even going to listen to that. She would have missed, I mean,
Oh,
what we
sure.
can just absolutely class A EVP.
Yeah. So do you feel like a location can consume you as far as like in researching or investigating a place over and over? I mean, like this place, has it consumed you as far as that route in the paranormal?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Something I feel like sometimes that's the worst attachments that we get is an attachment to a location or an attachment to an obsession with it. And during my first and second season, I covered a location that it was a residential, but it started as an investigation of a local legend. And I called it the Sunset Hill House. And so basically, this house, the homeowner, she was using it as storage. No one had lived in it for around 12 years. And so basically, and I was originally there investigating an alleged haunted tub that was tied to a local legend. And so while I was there, I started getting a lot of activity. And I wasn't sure if it was associated with the house or if it was associated with the tub. And so it ended up becoming a year and a half long case study for myself and my videographer. And the homeowner was really like, anytime you want to go in and conduct investigation, you can. I had my friend Tiffany White investigate with me. She's one that I investigate more darker cases with. And that place, I have to say, it became an obsession. I would say if I've ever had an attachment before, it would be there because I felt this any opportunity I could get to go in that house, I would. Any opportunity to listen to evidence, any opportunity, it was all consuming. And that house was very, very dark. And it for me, I think the worst part of it was the obsession that I mean, I could do nothing but think about things I experienced there, and really just trying to get to the bottom of things. So I feel like that happens a lot more than we realize, and sometimes it's almost just enough evidence or enough communication to draw you in, and once you're drawn in,
oh yeah,
there's no turning back. Yeah.
no, it's like
Yeah.
I hate to use this pun, but it's like you're addicted to video games or whatever
Mhm.
your favorite addiction is. I mean, you got to have it. Been there, done that, and it broke me. So I had to
Yeah.
step away. You have to force yourself to let go.
I think a break as an investigator, I think a break is always a good thing.
Oh yeah,
To do something continuously all the time is not healthy, regardless of how positive the behavior can be. There is a such thing as too much of a good thing. And so I think that the stepping away sometimes, taking a break sometimes, it's just it's like a clean reset. And as an investigator, we can get too tied in, we can get too jaded, we can get too tired,
yeah,
really. And so sometimes stepping away is good. And I kind of liken it to when you go on an investigation and nothing happens. Well, sometimes when nothing happens is just as valuable as when it does happen. And
very.
so it's almost like a reset and it's almost like a validation of things. So I agree with you that it's healthy to take a little break after certain locations, after
Yeah.
you've investigated for a long time. And I hear of investigators doing it all the time.
Dude, I am so recharged right now. It's like let me go, let's go right now.
Mhm.
It's like I want to go. I want to get this in before I get you out of here. You got a series called Ghost Biker Explorations. So let's talk about that a little bit. Where can we find it? What's going on with it? Got anything coming up possibly?
Absolutely. Ghost Biker is alive and strong. We are filming for season 6 right now. And so season 6 is going to come out the first Tuesday in October and air every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time on during the month of October, and it will air on the Ghost Biker Explorations YouTube channel, Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook page, and www.ghostbikerexplorations.com. You can go back and you can watch all the past 5 seasons, all the different places I've talked about. Some of the episodes are live episodes I've done. Some of them are themed seasons. We did last season was haunted jails. The season before that was haunted homes. So it was a bunch of homes. Octagon Hall was highlighted in that one. So visited a lot of really great locations, some commercial that you've heard of, a lot of locations that you've not, that are more, off the beaten path, lesser known places. So definitely filming those. Got a lot of speaking events coming up. Very, very excited and truly honored to be speaking at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash this summer, which is, yes, I am huge, absolutely huge. I mean, it is probably one of the largest paranormal conventions, at least as far as like a variety of people that's there. So this will be my first year attending and my first year speaking. So just to be surrounded by all these folks that are great, great investigators. That's going to be on July 14th, 15th, and 16th. I believe I'm speaking on that Friday. So huge thank you to Pam Berry for inviting me to speak. Going to be there representing Ghost Biker as well as the jail. And then going to be speaking at the Deep South Paracon, or the Deep South Paracomic-Con, which is there in Ozark, Alabama. That's going to be in August. And then let's see. I think quite a few. I've got one in Nashville and got several specific Ghost Biker events. Oh, and then I can't forget to mention this is going to be the first annual event. It's going to be taking place in Deadwood, South Dakota. It's going to be the last weekend in September. So nothing better than motorcycles, South Dakota, and going to be out in Sturgis doing this event. So
That's awesome.
Not got all the details on that yet, and then a few other Harley Davidson events. The last one I'll mention is going to be taking place in London, Kentucky. I'm partnering with Wildcat Harley Davidson, and we're doing a full Ghost Biker Explorations weekend, which all the funds from, it's going to be a haunted motorcycle ride, as well as a ghost hunt and a meet and greet. And all the funds that 100% of the funds on that one goes to the London Laurel Shop with a Cop program. So,
awesome.
So very excited. Even got some other haunted motorcycle rides that's going to take place here with the jail and everything. So yeah, definitely go check out Ghost Biker Explorations and check out the past seasons and be on the lookout for some really cool events and lives and stuff that's going to be coming up in the next little bit.
Folks, I want to thank each and every single one of you all out there for tuning in this evening. It makes my heart happy. Trust me when I see people in here interacting like this, because this is a labor of love that I do. I do my music, then plus I do my podcast for the paranormal, and I just love seeing people come in here and interact and giving up your time to come up here and interact with us. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Miranda, for coming in and talking about the historic Scott County Jail, and plus the Ghost Biker Exploration series. So I truly appreciate this.
Yes, and definitely go check out, if you aren't following the historic Scott County Jail, go follow that on Facebook. We are super active. You will see a lot. I know she's gone to bed now, but Miss Sally, who lives here at the jail, she made her appearance a little bit earlier. So she's actually our main person in charge here. But yeah, absolutely. Check that out. Follow on Facebook, also YouTube there, and then all the places you can find Ghost Biker as content creators. It's
Hard.
very tough.
Yeah.
But it's very cool whenever people choose to spend their evening listening to you share stories and interact there in the chat room. That's just way cool.
Oh, it does. It like I said, it brightens my heart. And we got to the YouTube page for Beyond the Paranormal Podcast, and soon we will have our YouTube paranormal site up so you can watch all of our crazy videos and craziness that I go through. Trust me, I won't let you down on that. And it's called the Ghost Hunter Guys. So this is going to be two separate things that I do. I do the podcast, Beyond the Paranormal Podcast, and then the actual YouTube one for the paranormal is going to be the Ghost Center guys. So that's going to be cool. So again, thank you guys for tuning in, and it's been awesome, Miranda. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, John.
Folks, next Tuesday we'll have KD Stafford on the podcast. So we'll be talking to him about all his crazy inventions that he's got, and he's built some really cool stuff that you definitely want to stay tuned and check out. So we'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.